Today, I'll be highlighting the strongest possible policy interventions from our toolkit that tackle the concentration of corporate power that's driving the data center boom. And this is because we can't successfully combat the data center buildout without contending with the underlying economic and political incentives propping the industry up. So next slide, please. And next slide. So first, I want to start with the preservation of local and state control over the data center buildout. The overwhelming resistance we're seeing across the country to stop data centers at a local, state, and tribal level is not, as some industry backers want to claim, because our communities hate technology or progress. Communities are coming out because we know that this is a fight very much about power and about not wanting to see our communities controlled by the interests of a few powerful tech, private equity, and fossil fuel companies. Therefore, deference to local, state, and tribal authority is a key vehicle to stop corporate power and address the ways that data centers are immediately harming our people and the planet. And people are already building significant power here, including through bans, moratoriums, and zoning restrictions, a topic we will actually explore in our next session. But I want to shout out a few examples. Monterey Park, California, this week became the first California city to ban all data centers within city limits. In March, the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma became one of the first Native American tribes to enact a complete moratorium on data center development within its jurisdiction. And just yesterday, the Oklahoma City Council unanimously approved a temporary moratorium on new data centers within city limits. Now, currently, this administration is using its executive authority to try and usurp state, county, and municipal laws and regulations, and they're doing this to do the bidding of corporate actors. And so rejecting this overstep is another important countervailing force. And so this includes allowing local, state, and tribal governments to set rigorous use limits. So on a flag, there are so many other ways that local, state, and tribal governments can assert authority over data centers, and that's essentially what the rest of this series will cover. So next slide, please. So the next set of interventions I want to flag are those designed specifically to break up corporate power. Tackling concentrated power is not a new issue in this country. And we have a robust anti-monopoly toolkit of agencies and laws that are tasked with breaking up corporate power when it threatens our markets, our communities, and our democracies. So this includes policy things like structural separation to break up big tech companies, enforcing stricter rules around mergers and acquisitions in the tech and energy market, and instituting bright line rules to prevent AI companies from abusing their market dominance. Now, when it comes specifically to the energy sector, we're seeing increased consolidation and private takeover. Policymakers can push to prevent the private equity takeover of utility companies, and we can draw lessons from successful public power campaigns happening across the country. Shout out to Milwaukee, New York, Tucson, reasserting democratic control over our energy system. So we'll talk a little bit more about private equity's role in the build out in our June 10th session. Next slide, please. So the next set of interventions involve regulating the AI industry at a local, state, federal, and tribal level. So AI regulation goes hand in hand with regulations surrounding the data center build out to ensure that if data centers are built, they cannot be done so in service of technology that harms people. So first, policymakers can pass laws protecting their constituents from AI harms. These include bright line rules that restrict the most harmful AI uses. I'll call out some successful examples here. These are laws like in North Dakota, where AI cannot be used to deny health insurance claims, and a California law where AI cannot replace community college professors. AI should be regulated throughout the entire life cycle of development. So this means placing rules on model developers building the largest frontier models, as well as placing rules on the deployers of AI technology. So the second bucket on this slide is around preemption. The federal government is currently attempting to stop state and local governments from passing AI regulations, and they're trying to do this through a legal vehicle called preemption. This basically means that if the federal government passes a law on a topic, state and local governments are prevented also from doing so. The threat right now under this administration is that the federal government will pass weak federal standards, which will prevent states from passing anything stronger. The movement to reject preemption is strong, it's bipartisan, and it's very live right now. And so those of us who are engaged in the fights against data centers must see these fights as united. Next slide, please. So the next set of interventions are those designed to limit corporate influence over the data center development process itself. Policies to reject corporate secrecy are critical. These include requiring companies to comprehensively and publicly report on data center metrics, like how much water they're using, banning the use of NDAs in economic development, and preventing companies from hiding behind trade secret laws to avoid public disclosure. Election reform is also critical because we know the industry is trying to influence the process. So to give just one example, Virginia's state-regulated utility monopoly, Dominion Energy, spent over $600,000 backing a candidate in the Attorney General race. Attorney General is the role designed to hold utility companies like Dominion accountable for harms to ratepayers. So we can impose common sense political spending limits for individuals and PACs and prohibit corporate contributions to political campaigns, something that 23 states currently do. Next slide, please. So lastly, under this bucket is unlocking opportunities for the public to participate in public utility ratemaker cases. And this is critical for determining how much everyday ratepayers will have to pay for their electricity. There are policy interventions here like funding public interest interveners and removing some of the legal barriers that make public participation really hard. California, for example, has awarded over $3 million to interveners. Next slide, please. So finally, I want to end with a policy recommendation that thinks about our economy more broadly, prompting policymakers to build out an economic agenda without AI at the center. Because hitching our economy on one concentrated industry is not sustainable or healthy. And it's given policymakers AI blinders that are masking an otherwise bleak economic picture. So building a robust economic agenda that decenters AI and focuses on comprehensive jobs, robust social security net, and checking corporate power will unlock innovation and opportunity in our economy for all. And at the same time, policymakers can pursue financial reforms to protect the public from financial collapse due to the record level of debt that firms are taking on to fund this data center build-out. So taken together, these policy interventions are designed to check large, powerful companies from riding the current AI boom to amass even more market power. These are powerful and necessary corollaries to the more targeted reforms at a local, state, and tribal level that we'll be discussing throughout the series. Thank you.